there were rules regarding racial segregation. The white passengers would occupy the front of the bus and Negro in the back. There actually was no violation of the city ordinance in my arrest, but the fact that I refused to obey the bus drivers who had police power to rearrange seating or to have you stand to prevent the inconvenience of a white passenger.
For example, I am black. I know that. I also know that while I am black, I am a human being. Therefore, I have the right to go into any public place. White people didn't know that. Every time I tried to go into a place, they stopped me. So some boys had to write a bill to tell that white man he's a human being. Don't stop him. That bill was for that white man, not for me. I knew it all the time. I knew it all the time. I knew that I could vote and that wasn't a privilege, it was my right.
Mama Charlene Caver Miller is a powerhouse of community service in Buffalo, volunteering for local block clubs, food pantries, and the Challenger, as well as the American Red Cross, NAACP, YMCA, and other religious and public organizations dedicated to helping those in need. Feeding the hungry, especially young people, is a particular calling for Miller. She takes her guidance from a passage from the biblical Sermon on the Mount. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks, receives. The one who seeks, finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be opened.
And yet, since I made my escape from slavery, I have had to struggle for existence as hard as the poorest man in England. Having come out from under the institution of slavery, destitute of education or friends, in the coldest winter season, without a penny in my pocket or any friend to appeal to. And yet, I had rather grope my way along and try to get my living under the most disadvantageous circumstances than serve a single moment under the institution that I have left behind me. William Wells Brown.
King Peterson began his career in politics by serving 2 terms on the Erie County Board of Supervisors. He was elected to the Buffalo Common Council as the Ellicott District Representative in 1955, becoming the only second African American to serve on the Common Council in the city's history. A progressive Democrat, Peterson stood against police discrimination and supported public housing projects. He became the first American to hold the position of acting mayor of Buffalo in 1956, while both the mayor and the Common Council president were attending the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
We talk about freedom of speech. We are talking about something substantive, and we're not simply talking about a formal notion of freedom of speech. And those who would call for the right to speak freely in order to openly prevent others from having rights and liberties that are guaranteed them by the Constitution. I mean, I think that is a contradiction in terms.
I've gone through several efforts in this community to build organizations. And I just want to say that it is not easy to do. And if you are serious about doing it, you have to make some serious commitments, and you have to be willing to put in some hard work.
The system of this country cannot produce freedom for an Afro-American. It is impossible for this system, this economic system, this political system, this social system, this system, period, It is impossible for it, as it stands, to produce freedom right now for the black man in this country. It's impossible.
You see, black people, black resistance, and black organizing has changed the landscape of what is politically possible. Whether or not you call it Black Lives Matter, whether or not you put a hashtag in front of it, whether or not you call it the Movement for Black Lives, all of that is irrelevant. Because there was resistance before Black Lives Matter, and there will be resistance after Black Lives Matter.
For me, as a person of color, there can never be enough diversity. I hope it's one of caring. That when I was in office, my whole thing was that we wanted to take care of the people who came into the office and the citizens of the city of Buffalo.
And when I read it, it just jumped off the page. And I said, well, that's our legacy. That's what we have to do. We have to plead our cause. That's our job.
And then I made up my mind that knowledge wasn't enough. That even if people were ignorant of essential matters which they had to know, they wouldn't correct their actions without more realization of just what the difficulties were. They had not only to know, but they had to act.
Everybody in this country, starting at the top and coming on down, has to be able to appreciate culture and diversity. I feel very strongly about that.
Because we've observed the course of history, and we're sure to win as the fact of the sun coming up, or the fact that the sun came up yesterday. The capitalist is betting that it will come up tomorrow, but we only bet on the historical fact, and history shows that people have the power, and they always respond in their best interest eventually.
I have faith in the American people. I believe that we are smart enough to correct our mistakes. I believe we are intelligent enough to recognize the talent, energy, and dedication which all Americans, including women and minorities, have to offer. I know.
As a publisher, political organizer, and dedicated family man, Frank Merriweather helped shape the political, economic, and civic growth of Buffalo's African American community for more than 3 decades. In 1922, Merriweather founded the Buffalo Criterion. He envisioned the publication as a space to interweave local and national issues impacting the lives of African Americans, featuring stories on housing, employment, education, and civil rights, as well as the push for greater representation on the Buffalo Board of Education.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream
It should not be necessary to struggle forever against popular prejudice. And with us as colored women, this struggle becomes twofold. First, because we are women, and second, because we are colored women. The greatness of nations is shown by their strict regard for human rights, rigid enforcement of the law without bias, and just administration of the affairs of life. Mary Talbert.
Reverend J. Edward Nash Sr. was the son of former slaves. At the age of 24, he accepted a position as pastor of Buffalo's Michigan Street Baptist Church, and part of his legendary association with the Underground Railroad. During his notable 61-year ministry, Nash developed a statewide and national reputation, not only for his powerful sermons, but also for his tireless advocacy on behalf of the less fortunate.
Dr. Lydia T. Wright was the city's first African-American pediatrician. She served generations of children in the community over a 36-year career as a physician. In 1962, Wright was elected to the Board of Education, vowing to be the community's voice during board debates on school racial integration. During her 5 years on the board, Wright fought to develop busing and redistricting plans that would more evenly distribute African American and white students across schools in the district. As a draw for students and their families, she proposed that each high school have a specialization, an idea that anticipated the city's current magnet school system.
You say that all men are created of one blood, and that all men everywhere should love one another, yet you notoriously hate those whose skin is not colored like your own. You proclaim before the world, and before the world proclaim, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and have been endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yet, you hold in bondage a seventh part of the inhabitants of your country.
Beginning in the 1960s, Dr. Monroe for him worked tirelessly to promote and highlight the contributions of African Americans, especially members of the Buffalo's African American community, to this country's history and culture. In 1974, Fordham was at a driving force in founding the Afro-American Historical Association of the Niagara Frontier, an organization dedicated to collecting and preserving records documenting the legacies of African Americans in Western New York.
Chief Justice, may it please the court. Mr. Justice Whitaker, petitioner got on the bus in Washington, and he did what Congress has recognized. He began on what he expected to be a normal, uninterrupted journey without discrimination. The bus company dumped him at this bus terminal. He didn't walk in there. The bus company put him there.
And I addressed him and told him that I didn't try to register for you. I tried to register for myself. I had to leave that same night. All of this is on account of we want to register to become first-class citizens. And if the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America?
Education is the number one civil rights issue of the day. If somebody can come up with any other issue for people of color,
In 1977, Gillette became the first African-American woman on the Erie County Legislature. During her time in office, she eschewed party politics in favor of getting things done across the aisle, including working with Republican legislator Joan K. Bozer to convert the city's former main office building into Erie Community College's city campus. Gillette also fought to make sure minority contractors received an equal amount of county contracts. After her 2 terms in the legislature, continued to be active in her community, opening a bank at the Town Gardens apartment complex, among other projects.
For 250 years, we have struggled under the burden and rigors of slavery. We were maimed, we were brutalized, we were ravaged in every way. We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires just like any other race. The cry is raised all over the world of Canada for the Canadians, of America for the Americans, of England for the English.
I had crossed a line of which I had so long been dreaming. I was free, but there was no one to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land, and my home, after all, was down in the old cabin quarter with the old folks and my brothers and sisters. But to this solemn resolution, I came. I was free, and they should be free also. I would make a home for them in the north, and the Lord helping me, I would bring them all there. Harriet Tubman.